Hi traders, and welcome back to IFX, and let's talk about the reversal block and the trend block. Yesterday we spoke about how we can actually trade only these two blocks, and whether as a block entry or the block retest without any other indicators. So the other indicators or filters that we have will be trend indicators, the extremes and the divergence. But I know there are many people who don't like to trade any indicators and they would like to trade pretty much with the naked chart, right? So I'm going to teach you today how we can actually trade only the reversal block or the trend block, and how we can actually filter out those blocks on our own and be able to figure it out if it was actually a good entry or not. All right, so let's go over on the charts right now and let's take a look at the block entries. So right now over here we have pound dollar M15. So whatever I do on this pair and this time frame, you can apply it to any pair and any other time frame, whether it's 1 minute to actually weekly, hourly, or daily. Okay, so you can apply it to any time frame that you desire. You have to think about this. You can't expect to trade like the person next door or from me or from the other person. You have to personalize your trading. It all depends on the time you have to spend on trading, how much time you want to be in front of the computer. It all has a lot of factors that you need to take into account. So if you don't like stressful trading and you don't have much time to trade, then I would suggest you actually trade and take a look at 1 hour and 4 hours and trade only on those. It's going to take much longer for a trade to develop, but it doesn't matter. So if you like more stressful trading and you like something more active, then you can take a look at M5 or M15, which the market gives you more opportunities, but it's also going to be very stressful. So it all works on any time frame and any pair that you would like to trade. It's just up to you. What are your conditions in terms of trading? Okay, so I'm going to go over only on M15. I cannot really go over on every single time frame because it's just gonna make the video longer. And like I said, whatever I go over in here, you can apply it to any other time frame. So we have two types of blocks. We have the reversal block and the trend block. So the reversal block is always going to be in gray, whether it's bullish or bearish, and it's always going to happen first. It's always going to be the block that happens first before any other block, before the trend block. Okay, the trend block is going to be in green to be bullish, and it's going to be in red to be bearish. So as you're able to tell in here, the reversal block gave us a block entry, which is the initial block entry right over here. And then the trend block happened way after, like on the next day over here. So you can see that there are some differences in those type of blocks, and sometimes they do happen at the same time. Like on this example, the reversal and the trend block bearish happened at the same time, and it gave us the same candle, and then from there the market went down. So there are some few differences. All you have to actually choose is which block do you want to trade. We get the reversal block, we get it more often, and the trend block sometimes we might get it too late when it's too late to enter. So it's just, we can never win. There are pros and cons when it comes about to the two type of blocks, but it's good to have them both, that you can actually learn from them and it gives you an advantage in the market. Okay, so that's the block entry. Usually the block entry, this is the reversal block entry, which is the first initial entry that we actually get in the market. But we also get block retest that it shows in with an arrow. So right over here we have an arrow showing that we had a block retest. So this was the initial entry right over here, which is very tiny. Let me just make this a little bit bigger to show you better. So right over here, the reversal and the trend block actually happened at the same time with this candle right here. So this was the initial block entry. So you have to decide, do I want to trade the initial block entry or do I want to trade only retest? How does the retest work? Well, the retest actually, if I make this a little bit longer, just to kind of show you an example, well, the way it works is if the price, so the price came out of the box, then it came back inside into my box to retest it, or my block trend. Then we have here another candle that closed outside of my block. So this would have been the first retest. Okay, so this would have been the first retest or second entry after the initial block entry. Then the market happened to come back inside again, and then this candle is where the price closed outside of our box. So again, this would have been now our second retest. So this was the last retest in here, and then finally the price went up. So do you want to take retest, or do you want to enter on first block entry? Well, again, there are times where we actually don't get retest, where the market blocks, gives us the block entry. This again happened at the same time, the reversal and the trend block. I like when they both happen at the same time. That gives me more confidence. And then it actually, boom, it went down, and it never gave you a retest of that block. So you have to take into account that market retest or block retest is going to happen less often, okay? And you're going to get multiple entries as well. So further in lessons, I'm going to show you how you can actually, with the EA, we can just enter on the first block retest pretty much, and then that's it. So it doesn't enter here once and then the second time in here again, because it's too close together, and we don't really want that. We want to be just, if it was way too low, then it was good, but if it was within the same price, it's just not worth entering again and again. And so again, the trend blocks, they happen later on sometimes. So again, this is another example where we got the reversal block first, and this one happened on the next day. This was the first block entry, the first initial entry. The market went down, it came back up again, and then it gave me a retest arrow here. And so the color of the arrow indicates the color of the block. Okay, so if it's red, it's representing what? My red arrow. My red arrow represents the red or bearish block. So this was the first retest, right, of this block. It went down a little bit, and then unfortunately the market kept going higher. So now we actually got a retest, a couple of retests right here, which you can see with the arrow in here, right? So we had a couple already. We had one, the market went inside my block, came back out again, it went back inside, it came back out again, and it's pretty much playing around in here. So you can enter on either reversal block retest or trend block retest. Now you're going to tell me which one is better. Well, it's really hard to say which one is better, because like I said, there are pros and cons when it comes about with the both blocks. So it's just a matter of just choosing and making the best of it. So I can never answer which one is better, because like I said, it's just market happens and you don't know what's going to happen on the next day. You just got to be active and pay attention and make advantage of the market, what the market is giving you at the moment. Okay, so is it possible to actually trade only the blocks with any other indicator, just pretty much buy and sell whenever a block comes about? Yes, it is possible. It could be a little bit hard, but it's not that hard. The main thing that I would advise anybody, if you're trading any time frame, is to always look to your left. So if, let's say right now we were going to sell, it's always nice to look to your left just to find pretty much a peak, okay? Peak formation. When was the last previous high or last peak that we can actually use as a resistance, as to hold it? Is it going to hold it up there and say, hey, this is actually going to go lower, or it's gonna, it's not gonna go lower? So right now, if we take a look, we have a peak right over here. Let me just bring this down a little bit so I can show you. So we have what we can say highest peak in here. So usually the market goes down and will go up at least 50% or halfway up, right? So this is what the market went down, and we can kind of see that the market has already traveled up again halfway up. So It is possible that it can hold it, although we are not close to this nice resistance, what we can call it. It has some distance that it still needs to travel, but there's still some probability that maybe it can now go down somewhere to this low right over here, or to this low. So we have different peaks right here, right, that we can actually maybe take a look at, and then probable that where the market can possibly go down to maybe keep bouncing up and reach here or reach higher than that. So always look to your left to help you out. Where is it possible the market could stop, and then if it went up or down halfway already. So if it's halfway or more than halfway, that's a good reasoning that the market then could give us a block reversal that we can actually enter. Okay, so that's one of the tips right there. So it is, you can trade multiple blocks throughout the day without following any higher time frame, without following any indicators. I do so once in a while. It all depends on market conditions. Like over here, we would have had a nice entry, and we had a block retest right here, and the market dropped very nicely. Then your question is, where can the market actually get to? Well, we can actually see the market has just been dropping and dropping. This would have been one low right over here, but it just kept on going lower and lower. So you have to actually search, go to a higher time frame, and look for the next previous low that the market could actually hold. It seems that we got a block in here, but the market went up just a little bit to drop again. So I'm going to give you an example in here. What is really the reasoning behind the blocks? So if you think about this, what are we looking for? The market moves in cycles, right? Cycles up and down. So when we get a block, is because whether it's a trend block or reversal block, is because it seems that we got to a peak, right? You can see that, hey, we only see this part, we just don't know if it's gonna go lower, right? And we always want to bring it at least close to base camp. I call it base camp. This is the high of the mountain, and this is the tip of the mountain, right? When we get a block, we think that's the tip of the mountain, right? Because we can't see further. We cannot see really what's gonna keep on doing. But if I look to my left, and then I can see, hey, okay, it reached close to the previous tip of the mountain. This block could be a nice block. And if it reaches at least more than 50% of this move, then this block was good. Okay, right, we don't know until everything happens, but right, we enter and we don't know if it's gonna go at least more than 50% or if it's gonna reach base camp. And then once it reaches more than 50%, then we're going to get another block right over here. This is the upside down peak, and this would be considered a base camp, which could be our target profit. And then we would enter in here and then get out over here. The market made a new high, and then it will get another tip. It will, if it reaches to base camp, we will consider this base camp, or at least more than 50% down of this move. If it's more than 50%, then it's good, then this block was good. Correct, we don't know. Market doesn't do that all the time. So there are times where you get a peak formation, you get a block, an entry, you enter, and unfortunately it keeps on going higher. So it never reached either 50% or it never reached base camp. So that's where the issue comes about. We never know, right, if it's gonna do that. Of course, we have maybe other indicators that can lead us to that, but if you look to your left and it never reach to close to a high, then that could be one signal, like, hey, maybe this is gonna keep on going higher. So if you happen to enter and then the market made a new high, and then this block is going to become invalid. It's going to be gone from here. Why? Because the price never reached halfway or got close to base camp. So that's why the block becomes invalidated and you don't see it any longer, because the market never reached halfway nor did it reach here. So it made a new high, and then it gave us another new block in here. So now you get scared because now you think it's gonna do the same thing, but then this time it does go a little bit lower. It doesn't reach this base camp, but at least it reaches more. So you would have entered in here. Let's say you did enter here, you will hold this trade, and then you will re-enter in here, and then you would have closed maybe a trade in here, you know, both of them close to here, and then that's it, you'll be done for the day. Now, one of the things that I suggest is that if you usually, for example, you use with one standard lot, let's just use standard lot, then you will enter here with 25% of that standard lot, or you will enter with 50, and then you will leave that other part of your lot to enter on the second trade, possibly to your second peak, right? Sometimes we get market might go higher and higher, but remember, if you look to your left and you're close to a nice peak, a nice mountain there, then you know that it could be able to give us a nice resistance and support. The same goes when we're buying. So again, we expect the market to do, when we get a block right over here, we expect it to go to this high. It doesn't do it. Unfortunately, it goes lower. Then we're like, oh no, so this block unfortunately becomes invalid because it never reached halfway, nor did it ever reach this high. It goes lower. Unfortunately, it's kind of doing something like this. So that's when we realize, oh, okay, the market is actually making lower lows and is actually going lower. Again, you have to look to your left just to kind of see what is going on behind us, to kind of have an idea where it could possibly reach. So if they made the mistake of entering here, then you can see if the next peak is going to work by looking to your left. Then if not, then you're gonna wait for the next peak and then enter in here. So let's say you enter in here, you can wait and then re-enter right over here, and then that's it. You know, hopefully this one will actually reach closer to this peak right over here. The market does that all the time. I mean, I can show you examples where the market actually reaches. So if I go back to an example right over here, let me just go lower here and then show you. We can tell we had one peak trying to form a peak formation. Although this was valid just for a little bit, I'm going to show you about the cycles, how we can actually change this cycle. And because it gave me a block over here, so it didn't become invalid because it actually gave me a block, and then it went lower to the next peak, and then this was the peak where the actual market actually went higher and higher. So if you would have entered in here and hold on this trade, yes, that's probably a strong move, but you're not going to enter all your full lots in here. You're gonna enter for a little bit to test this peak. Then the market goes against you, then you have to look and see if this peak is actually going to finally work. Then eventually it did go up and keep going higher and higher. Yes, there's nothing, you know, it's hard to predict the market, but if I go to 1 hour, we can actually look that where the market has been. So unfortunately, the market actually has made really strong move to the downside where it hasn't been in a really long time. You know, I can look left and yes, maybe in here there's some low right over here, but the market hasn't been there in a long time. So the market definitely has made new lows from a very long time, and you know, it was hard to predict. But let's say this low right over here was close to this low right over here, and then it actually went up. It got close to this peak right over here. This was one peak right here, and the market finally came back down to these previous two peaks and then finally made a new low. So if you know, that's some of the things that you have to think about. You know, where has the market been, where is it possibly can it go, right, using your blocks and reversals. Okay, so now, is there a way that we can actually filter these blocks, that we can actually get less and less entries? Yes, there's a way to do that, and I'm going to show you right now. So right now I'm going to show you M15 reversal block entries using a setting of 34. So as you remember, the market moves in waves, okay? So the market moves in waves, certain waves where, we can measure them by numbers, okay? So the blocks can be measured with numbers. So if I use a random number of 34, actually you can use 30 or, then let's say 34 entries are pretty much almost every single peak that the market can count. So I'm gonna get entries on every single peak formation that the market can possibly give me if I use 34. If I increase it to 60, then out of all these peaks, then 60 might just give me an entry here, then it might just give me a second entry in here and ignore any other previous peaks. And if I increase it by more, then it's gonna actually give me only maybe one entry and then maybe another one entry, and then that's it. So I'm going to show you an example of how the settings, or pretty much peaks, how many peaks do you want? That's pretty much what I want you to concentrate. So in here, this is the reversal block settings. This is just using one block, using the number 34 block settings, okay? And it gave me 6 entries in one day. So we're gonna concentrate in one day. So I'm gonna show you in here, October 4th, and it gave me one entry here. This is actually, I can just show you that we can actually scalp and enter on every single block. This is scalping using 12 pip take profit. So in here, enter in one, another one. They're all pretty much almost winners. So out of all of these 6 entries, 5 of them worked except this one, which is, the take profit was here, but it actually would have taken it on the next day. So that is pretty interesting. So it is possible that we can trade old blocks that has been given, and yes, you can actually would go crazy because they happen very often. This is 15 minutes. I cannot imagine 5 minutes or even 1 minute. And yes, you can actually scalp. So this is 12 pips entries where you can actually get, and so you won't be able to trade 10 pairs scalping like this because you will go crazy. But if you concentrate on one, you most likely will be able to scalp all the block entries. Okay, so 6 entries in one day. That's quite a lot using the reversal block. If we use the trend block, more or less, we might get less entries depending, because that block is a bit different, but you can test it yourself. Now, let's move on and say M15 reversal blocks on the same day, now increasing the block settings to 60. So from 34 to 60. So that's almost, that's 30 pips right there, 30 like in difference, right? And now it gave me 4 entries instead of 6. So that's already 2 less entries that we can actually concentrate. So in here again, there were all winners, 3 winners, and in here on the same day was not a winner, but you would have gotten it again on the next day. So this is 4 entries in one day using the 60 settings on the block. Now, what if I increase this to actually 80? Now the block was increased to 80 and we only got 2 entries in one day. We only got sell entries. We got a sell entry in here and we got a sell entry in here. It completely ignored these buys entries in here. And I'm going to tell you why did it ignore that. It ignored it because this low, it didn't come down at least halfway from this move, from this low over here, which should have been at least somewhere around here to be able to give me that entry. So it's minimizing, has to make another low from the previous low. So in here, why is it giving it to me? Because the market keeps giving me small highs. It keeps giving me a new high all the time. So it does giving me the sell entries because it's giving me new highs from the previous one, but this buy entry, it completely ignored it. It gave me this one from the previous day, but it ignored this one. Why? Again, because it didn't come down at least halfway from that previous move, or didn't make a new low. So in here on the previous one, we did get it right here, and then we kept getting, we got two more right over here because the market made a new low compared to this low right here, and then this low was lower than this one, so it's taking lower and lower or higher, like minimizing it, like tiny moves. And then this one, pretty much it just gives me a lot of buy entries, you know, like this buy or this low was just a little bit lower than the previous one, just a little bit tiny. I mean, the difference is not much, so that's why did it give me this one as well. So you can tell that we get a lot of entries when we use 34. Then if you increase it to 60, and when you increase it to 80, you can even increase it. I mean, you can use random numbers. You can use 100 to 120. You can go in increments of 20 or increments of 30, and the same goes for 1 hour, and the same goes for 5 minutes, the same goes for 4 hours. So if you want on the 1 hour to be on 60, you can try it how many entries you will get in one day. Then if you increase it to 80, or if you increase it to 100, then the increments or the block formations are going to be more extended. Okay, so this is the main idea in here, how we can actually filter those actual blocks. So the way you filter them is, one way is you're going to right click, go to your indicators, and you're going to go to reversal block, and then right in here it says 21 or 34, aggressive, 60 or 80. You know, you can increase it in here and then go to 80, and then that should be able to change. Then also if you change the trend block to 80, you can do that as well. Okay, so if you want to get less entries, you can do that. And then on the EA, what are we going to do? So this is the EA right over here. We're gonna go to experts properties, and on the EA, where are we going to concentrate? So we're going to look in here. This is the EA. We're gonna break it down in pieces, so it's just easier for all of us to actually understand better. So the EA right here where I'm talking about is right over here. Okay, so block type, you know, the trend block, you either choose the trend block or the reversal block. Then you can actually choose if you only want to enter on block entry or retest, or you can actually use both. So you can choose what type of entry do you want. Do you want the initial entry, or you only want the retest, or you actually want both just in case you miss the first one, or you want to enter on both at the same time. So it all matters. You have to think about that. Then time frame, 15 minutes. What time frame do you want to trade? Do you want to trade 5 minutes? You want to trade 1 hour, 15 minutes? So you will have to choose what time frame would you like to get alerts, or you want the EA to enter for you. Now here's the block settings right over here. You can change that yourself. You can definitely choose any number that you want. We use 60 as a default, but you can increase it or you can decrease it if you want to get more entries. And then on this too, we're going to talk about this later on when it comes down more or less with the other, if we use filters. Okay, so this, we're going to leave this alone for now, and we're going to talk about it on the next following lessons. But the main idea in here is just that you understand that we can actually just filter out these settings on the block. So in here again, you can just click in here and choose which block do you want. Don't ask me which one is better. You know, it's really up to you. You want trend block or reversal block. In here, block entry, retest, both. I mean, again, they have pros and cons on both, on every single one of entry. You know, we can never get the best entry, so don't expect always to have the best entry. So you can say only block entry. You want to trade on 1 hour, so you click on that, and then you want less blocks, and you can just say to 80, and then you go to OK, and then that's pretty much it. So now, you know, when you get the EA, when you get the alerts, you're only gonna get alerts when that meets, okay, when that peak formation meets at an 80, pretty much 80 move. You know, it all depends on market cycles. So that's the neat thing about this. So again, on here using 80 only on 15 minutes, we only got 2 entries. So that was pretty neat. So again, yeah, we would have missed this one, but at least you would have gotten this one. And well, this one, if it would have been the second entry, you would have missed it, at least if you're getting 12 pips. And if you want to be more active and trading in the market, then you can use 60. You would enter in here, then again you would have had other couple of entries to enter in here to scalp, and then again you would have maybe gotten this one, or maybe you wouldn't trade even this one. This is closer to your Asian session, which where the market kind of slows down more. So you have to think about that too. What sessions are you going to trade? Asian session sometimes could be slower, and mostly in the beginning of the Asians, towards the end of the Asian session, when it meets with the London, is actually much better. So right over here, again, this would have been great entries. So again, you could trade just block entries by giving it just one simple filter that you just changing the block settings. And I'm going to give you one extra filter that it does include an indicator that maybe you could use. We're going to use the moving average on the same 13 simple moving average. And then if I add it, and let's just say that if my entry happens to be inside my moving average, then I could enter on that trade. So usually on all of them, well, we kind of did meet that requirement. So you could increment this, let's say, to 21, and if the entry happens inside the 21 moving average, then you would say, you know what, I would trigger this entry. So that's another way of filtering those entries. So if I use the 21, if I would have used in here the 13, then every single entry would have been true. But if I use the 21, just as one simple change, then I would have not entered here, I would have not entered here, then in here I would have entered, and then in here it didn't really close inside my moving average. So the only trade out of all this would be only one trade, right? So instead of 4 entries in one day, then would have been only one entry, which would have actually worked out very nice. So that's another thing that you can actually think about this and use one filter, which could be just as simple as a moving average. Ignore any other filters, ignore any high time frames, ignore anything out there, and just actually trade. Change the block settings and change, if you want to use a moving average, which could be any moving average that you use. I use either sometimes the 13 or 21, that actually helps. And then that's it. You should be able to filter. So let's say if we go backwards a little bit, take a look in here. This entry was phenomenal. It was a nice entry that happens inside my moving average. And then in here, we would have totally ignored these 2 entries, which actually didn't work out. This one also, this one was towards the end of the session, so this would have not been good. So the only entry out of this day would have been really this. Instead of 1, 2, 3, 4 entries, would have been really one entry. So that's another way of you filtering those trades. So I hope this was helpful. Again, it's very simple. We're just gonna concentrate. This is all about based on reversal block and trend block entries, block entry or retest. So again, retest, let's say in here on this one particular example, this was our entry. The market happened to come back inside the block. If it comes back outside, then you would have had 2 more opportunities to re-enter on this block. So if you would have ignored this entry, you could have 2 more retests of this entry and then re-enter in here. So this is block retest only. It doesn't happen all the time, but when it happens nicely. So that's another part in that you have to decide what is it that you want. And that's it. So you would have to change only the block settings on the indicator. Very easy. You just change it right over here, reversal block settings. You change it to whatever number that you want. and both of them. And then on the EA, again, you would just that's part of the EA that we're talking about. All you have to do is right over here on the strategy what type of block you want to enter. If you want to enter block, retest, or both, what type of what time frame do we want to enter, 15 minutes, choose that, and then the block settings. So that's pretty much it, traders. We're gonna keep going on the following lessons, breaking down in little pieces so you can actually finally understand how the EA works. So I hope this was helpful, and I will see you on the next following lesson.